This is our podcast. I'm Luis Roman.
I'm Jose Salud.
And I'm Sergio Ramos.
The riots were.
Let me.
Alright. The riots were about the Virginia colony in the 1660s that had transformed into an enormous tobacco-producing operation dependent largely on the labor of the English and Irish workers, enslaved Africans, and Virginia Indians. Approximately 4 out of 5 workers were men. They suffered a high mortality because of diseases and poor treatment. Their treatment was so bad in 1657, a law was passed where servants were granted the right to take complaints to the courts for harsh and bad usage. In 1661, 40 workers in York County were angered by the lack of meat in their diets. This caused them to conspire a rebellion rather than take their case to court, led by Isaac Friend. They planned to riot, but they were betrayed and arrested. The same year, the General Assembly passed 2 acts requiring better treatment to those going to Virginia and those already there.
Right. Jose, what are your thoughts on the unfair treatment of them?
I mean, it's pretty bad because they didn't give him any meat, and they got like diarrhea or something.
But it's okay now because we have plenty of meat to give.
Hold up. These riots directly inspired a novel called Prisoners of Hope by Mary Johnston. Mary Johnston was famous for being the first woman to top bestseller list in the 20th century. Her writing often reflected her views of race as seen of her traditional and racist depiction of African Americans and natives. Johnston's attitude might have originated from her close association with the South. However, her views gradually changed as she grew older, and this attitude reflected on the short story she wrote titled Nemesis, which showed the lynching of a black man and the psychological effects it had on those involved. The hero of Prisoners of Hope is Godfrey Landless, who was a worker in Virginia who once fought for Oliver Cromwell, who was a military and political leader. Landless takes charge in planning a servant rebellion only to fall in love with his master's daughter, Patricia, creating another layer to the book's plot. When his plans are revealed, Landless is imprisoned and eventually wins Patricia's heart. Patricia's love by saving her from a fictional band of Virginia Indians. The book focuses on real human struggles of that time period, and although the Indian attack was made, they weren't very uncommon. Come on, Caesar, what are you doing? We interviewed Diego Arenas. He stated that he has not heard of the 1663 black and white riots of the Virginia colony. However, he claims to have heard of the author of the book Prisoners of Hope, Mary Johnston. After a brief summary of the excerpt, Diego then stated that he agrees that the riots were justified. He agrees that they were being mistreated and were overworked under extremely harsh conditions. He later stated, "This type of behavior was completely inhumane and uncalled for." Barbaric was the word he would best use to describe it as.
My name is Luis Roman. I'm here with
Sergio Ramos.
and Axel. Axel's the one being interviewed. Have you ever heard of the 1663 riots?
No.
So you haven't heard of them. Well, basically, they're the riots of 1663, and anyone who wasn't a rich factory owner or farm owner was treated poorly and worked under terrible conditions. And because of that, they rioted. Do you think those riots were justified?
Yes.
Why do you think they're justified? Is it because they're poor treatment?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the book Prisoners of Hope?
No.
Okay, have you ever heard of the author Mary Johnston?
No.
So because you haven't heard of the riot or the book or the author, do you think the riots had a big impact?
I don't know.
Seeing as to how you don't know that much about the riots, do you think the riots were necessary to the people's civil rights back then?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is all the questions we have for you right now. So I'm here with Axel
And Sergio.
and the one who is being interviewed currently is Axel. Axel, so what are your thoughts on the 1663 riots?
What are your thoughts on the riots? Fucking pussy, what are your thoughts on the fucking riots? That's what I thought, nigga.